ever meet?
No, this is when Brian Wilson was in his. I think
he was in bed.
Yeah, he was like laying in his bed.
He was just in bed.
He was in bed for like 3 months.
Because I think that would have ended the world, right? Like that's when the world implodes.
Only if they became best friends,
right?
Like if they, or would have saved a bunch of people, and then all of a sudden Charles Manson and him are just laying in bed together, doing that weird John Lennon Yoko thing.
God, I would love to hear Charles Manson on Smile. Charles Manson and Van Dyke Park getting together.
Smile.
Oh, yeah.
You got to smile, smile.
He's like,
smile, girl, yeah.
He's like a hip hop hype man. He would be great.
So in the recordings, they've never been officially released, but in a movie that both me and Henry watched, where we got a lot of this information from, it's called Cease to Exist, you can hear the producer talking to Charlie, and you can hear Charlie refusing to be produced. If you know anything about music,
right.
in recording
music... Because they were talking about it, too, because it was like, the girls wanted to look at Charlie when they were singing their songs, and he's just like, no, girls, it doesn't work like that. I put the microphones where they are for a fucking reason.
Right.
And they kept moving the microphones around and dancing around. Jules
and he's like, man, I don't like this microphone in front of my face. It looks phallic. Yeah, this phallic thing in front of my face. But I put my mouth on it if you want me to, but I probably ain't gonna.
Charlie, we're desperately trying to record an album here.
Right. Charlie, this is not about you being raped in prison multiple times when you were a child.
I was raped.
We know, Charlie. Get over it. Get out of the fetal position, please, Charlie. Can you put the microphone down here?
Well, the thing about Manson's music is that Manson's music was so deeply and amazingly personal. Like, his music was the core of him.
You really like it?
Absolutely everything.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like you like it too much, Marcus.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that's how Manson felt about it.
When you read Manson's own words, you realize that this whole thing happened because of music. Music was so important to him,
to some degree.
Which to me speaks the whole tragedy of it, is the fact that like it meant so much to him, and he was still pretty mediocre at it.
Yeah,
and so it's like he poured his heart and soul into this thing that was a thing that would never be successful.
Well, he's like everybody, especially nowadays. He likes the idea of being a musician, but he doesn't understand the hard work that goes into it. He had everything that a musician has: drugs, women.
He liked
friends.
the lifestyle. He liked the appearance of it. And then when it comes down to the actual, I actually don't even know if it's skill. It's just know-how. He didn't know how to record. He didn't know how to do it.
He didn't know how to record. And I think
it's boring. Recording in a studio is boring.
It is the worst.
Like
I'm in the middle of recording an album right now, and it's it is the most boring, repetitive, tedious thing that you can do as a musician, but you have to do it, and you have to be produced. You have to listen to what your producer is telling you.
It's Manson. It's Charles Manson.
Yeah, it's Charles Manson. Every single suggestion, anything, he would take it extremely personal. It's not that he couldn't follow advice. It's not that he couldn't follow directions. It's that he absolutely wouldn't. He said about the sessions, he said they didn't want us to perform as I felt we should.
Yeah, and then Terry Melcher then said that the group and the members of the family made promises that they couldn't keep, which was like
that they were talented.
Yes,
that they could play music. Yeah.
All right. So now, through Dennis Wilson, we meet the guy that is probably the crux. Of most of the horrible events we know about Charles Manson.
Terry Melcher. And as far as pissing off Manson and making him bitter, even more bitter, the Beach Boys stole one of his songs.
Which one was it?
Cease to Exist, which became a song called Never Learn Not to Love.
They completely changed the lyrics. They kept the melody.
They kept the melody, and they kept some of the lyrics. But they changed certain things here and there. But
never learn not to love.
Never learn not to love.
I don't know what that means.
It's a Beach Boys song. It's a mediocre Beach Boys song. The Beach Boys had a lot of mediocre songs. They had like one good album.
Re-listen to that title after you smoke a fucking hog's life.
Oh, then
you'll back. Then you'll understand.
Never learn not to love.
You'll never learn not to love. You'll get it eventually.
I like cease to desist is better.
Exist,
yeah. Cease to exist. Cease and desist. Cease to exist. That's cool.
Charlie saw this. He saw this rejection of his music. He saw this as a rejection of himself. This is another example of the world looking at Charlie Manson and saying, "We don't want you."
He also has that prison mentality where it's been nothing but him on him this whole time. So he has worked up this one-sided conversation in his head about how his music was undeniable for years and years and years. And so when he shows up,
and he's also got a bunch of women and a bunch of people telling him
that are reverberating it back.
Your music will change the world. This is the best thing ever.
His ego's out of control.
Oh God, it's so out of control.
And so having someone come and say no. Especially someone who knows what he's doing, who's a real record producer, who can then use that power on top of him. Charles Manson again has that sort of baby Hitler thing inside of him, that inferiority complex, and this is what starts the dark road.
Yeah, this is definitely where it begins. And it also, and the person who really takes him down the dark road also shows up this time, a man named Charles Tex Watson.
Now, Tex Watson made Charles Manson look like fucking Robert Oppenheimer. Made him look like a genius.
Oppenheimer. Tex Watson. Yeah.
Tex Watson is a fucking it's bad luck he got involved.
I think he self-nicknamed himself Tex, too.
No, George Spahn named him Tex.
I give it to him. Whatever. But he has no talent whatsoever, this Tex Watson.
Tex Watson's just some dude from a small town in Texas.
Right.
He was from Copeville, Texas. And he was the person that Charles Bugliosi, the DA that prosecuted Manson, he was the guy that Bugliosi put up as, look at what Charles Manson did to this innocent small town. Like, he was a football player, for fuck's sake.
Oh, yeah, they don't do anything wrong.
There's no way that a football player could ever possibly hurt a woman.
And now we know they're the most dangerous members of society.
Well, some of them are.
Yep, he was a church-going kid. And a lot of these, you see this again and again in the Manson family, a lot of these people had religious upbringings.
Well, of course. You have to have had it in order to even understand groupthink. It's like all fucking standardized religions do is teach you groupthink and how to follow along and how to follow rules and believe in a fucking magic set of circumstances that are going to punish you just because you've been jerking off in the boys' room every once in a while. Just to ease the tension.
What happened?
I'm just saying, just to ease the tension.
You had to jack off in the boys' room?
Yeah.
Oh my! I don't know what religion that is.
Catholicism.
Ah, that's right. Yeah. Well, the priest watches and make sure you do it right.
Yeah.
So
you didn't make the cream big enough, child.
Oh. All right, I'll try it again. Okay.
So after he graduated from high school, he visited California, moved out west, signed up for classes at Cal State, and got a job as a wig salesman in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
Dropped out of school and moved to Malibu. Decided to open up a wig shop of his own with his roommate, a store called Love Locks. That only lasted a few months.
What do you mean, though?
It's
Why
a big
not,
market.
though? It's fucking the wig market's booming right now.
It's Malibu.
Yeah, the 1967 wig market when people were in need of long hair.
There was a bubble.
There was
and the
a
bubble popped, and that's a shame that Tex Watson was a part of that. One of the casualties to that bubble, the wig bubble.
Yeah. In '64, everyone went down to Los Angeles, and Malibu was short hair. And they said, "This isn't cool." And overnight, you got to change. You got to go to the wig store. Wow!
So to pay rent, Watson starts dealing pot full time and starts getting involved with the criminal element. Charles picked up Dennis Wilson hitchhiking one day because Dennis Wilson just liked to hitchhike.
He was just
as
a
Charlie
crazy
Manson
person.
said, like I said before, he was a bit of a rebel. So Wilson invited him back to the mansion, and that is where he met Charles Manson. And as Watson says, and Watson and all the people who were, it's really interesting to me when you look at the interviews with the Manson people who got caught immediately just flipped on him and just said, you know what? No, he just did all this stuff to us. He brainwashed us. But everyone who didn't get caught was like, yeah, we're still on this trip, man. Yeah. We're fucking on this trip forever. We ain't never getting off of the fucking Manson train. But the people who are facing death row said, oh no, we were good Christian kids.
Of course.
Listening to Patricia Krenwinkel, like when she gave this interview afterwards, she's like, I will never ever forgive Charles Manson for what he did to me. And it's just like, he finger banged you until you could learn how to smile.
Exactly. You were loving your life. Yeah, before it was all frowns and moons, and now it's all sunshine and smiles.
Let's just go ahead and we're going to say it right now. Everyone involved in this scenario is an idiot. All
definitely.
these people are idiots. They're all dumb. They're all extremely impressionable. They're all just looking for something. They're all just looking for someone to follow, and they're dumb enough to follow an ex-con named Charles Charlie.
And Tex
Right.
Watson was basically kind of a loser dude who couldn't ever figure out how to do it. And they were saying here, like, you know, he struggled how to accumulate all I could, the right car, the right clothes, the right things, and would somehow complete what I thought was missing inside me. Now I gave everything I had to Charlie. Suddenly, I felt very free.
And then Charlie was just like, what am I going to do with all these wigs? All you got is wigs, Tex. Get out of here.
Listen, Charlie, listen. We take all the wigs, we sew them all up into a wig monster.
No, you can stay. Make the wig monster happen.
Technically, that's an idea, Tex. I don't know where we're going to utilize it yet, but I don't know. We also just got a trampoline, so if you could go tighten the springs of that trampoline, that would also be great. Thank you, Tex.
Every cult needs a wig monster.
So Tex got brought back to Spawn Ranch.
So it was Dennis Wilson, though, just to clarify, Dennis Wilson's the one who introduced Tex Watson to everybody?
Absolutely. Yeah. Dennis Wilson, he's got a pretty big hand inadvertently. Like
but then he also checked the fuck out as soon as everything went down.
Yeah, as soon as everything went down, he checked out. But he really, without Dennis Wilson's influence, none of this would have happened.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting how it's these tiny little connections that made this. So first it was the van. It was the Reverend's van. And then it was Dennis Wilson's involvement. These little things all sort of like strung. It's because there's a lot of sort of like fate involved in all this.
Yes, there is.
And like all this stuff kind of was a fragile thing that led to the murders. It's very interesting. You watch it and it's kind of, and we talk about this before about how like watching the fall of the Manson family is like watching the fall of the 60s itself.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it happens fast. But we'll get to that here in a bit. This is funny. Tex Watson, Charlie helped him out with his sexual inadequacies.